And then the poll going out and finding out, well, actually, most of New Zealand doesn't really have a good understanding of the treaty and of the principles. And I could even bet that those who did say, yeah, I kind of have an understanding, have a general idea about there was sovereignty and there was governorship, and then there were some other words in there. And they probably thought, yeah, I know enough.
Welcome to the Future of Learning, where innovation meets education.
Kia ora. Today I'm joined by Hamuera Tamihana, who is a lead curriculum developer at Te Wānanga Ihurangi. Welcome, Hamuera.
Kia ora.
I was going to start off by asking you to share your educational journey and how you came to be where you are today.
Yeah, so I've been teaching at secondary school for about 11 years, and this is my first year, last year was my first year I moved over to Te Wānanga Ihurangi. I was invited to be the lead curriculum developer. So before then, I was working in secondary schools, two different secondary schools, one in Hamilton and one in Tauranga, and now working for Te Wānanga Ihurangi. My main roles as a teacher was teaching te reo Māori and kapahaka and leading all things Māori within the two schools that I was based at.
Can you let us know a little bit more about what your current role entails?
Yeah, so this is a brand new Wānanga. It's a tertiary institute based in Auckland. And my role in the past year, and as well as this year continuing on, has been to develop a brand new curriculum focused at level 5 and level 6 of the curriculum. Fully immersive, full immersion te reo Māori course. Students will come in from Monday to Thursday, 9 till 3. Yes, focused purely on te reo. And so my job was just to design the course, decide on the topics, fill out all the main details that require to allow them to achieve, design their assessments, currently still working on their workbooks. But yeah, everything curriculum based has been my role. And then I also go up every second week and I'm a part of doing some guest lecturing, working with the students as well, doing tutorials on Wednesdays and Thursdays, just to make sure everything's running smoothly and to impart whatever other wisdom I have that I can.
That's awesome. It sounds very busy.
Definitely. Yeah, a lot of travel as well. But I love it. I love being in that immersive space where everyone that I work with speaks te reo. So all our communications, whether face-to-face, email, whiata, or a video conferencing, it's all in te reo, which is very different to what I was like when I was working in the Auraki system, the main schooling system.
And how many students are you currently catering for?
So because this is our first year, we've restricted the sizes of the class. So there's two different years. With the level 5 course, we've restricted it to 30. So there's 30 students there. And the level 6 course, we're restricted to 15. Next year, I believe we're going to open that up to about 75. And then each year we'll progressively just get a little bit more. But at the moment, yeah, especially at the level 5, I think we had around 100 people apply. So it means there's definitely a desire to be a part of the course and to be in that space. But yeah, we decided just because it is a first year and we need time to really work out everything that we're doing, making sure things are running smoothly, we decided to keep it small this first year.
Yeah. And so you're working now at the upper end. Our topic today will be focusing on te ao Māori in the classroom. And so we'll scale it back to the start. If it's 2024, and in terms of Māori being taught at school and class, what do you think is the bare minimum that a teacher should be covering? I know it's a sort of a broad question, but what are some of the things that a teacher should be using in class or saying in class?
See, I kind of leave heavily towards everything Māori they should be teaching in the class. But we know it's kind of impossible. You can only teach what you know and what you've learned. But I think genuinely, especially within Aotearoa New Zealand, there needs to be all of the basics. There needs not just instructions. There's a lot of haere mai, e noho, tiri, there's just instructional language. Well, I think there should be a little bit more of conversational language introduced as well, especially in the earlier years. Primary, my view is it's expected that everyone should be learning pepeha, mihi, those sorts of things, because it gives the students an understanding of what's important to Māori. There should be a lot of, obviously, the main greetings, asking and how you're feeling, maybe what you're doing today, that sort of thing, I believe, should be taught in the primary, intermediate sort of space. And it would be amazing if all teachers had the capability to be able to do that. And I know some feel very fearful of making mistakes or getting things wrong, and so probably don't try as much as as the rest of us would like them to. But yeah, if we look at the curriculum itself, even at level 1, so by the time they hit year 9, they should be at level 4. And that's not the case. People are turning up at year 9 and are still at level 1. So there's this massive gap where we really should be aiming for. So the last high school that I was working at, they had an aim to get all students up to level 2 by the end of year 8, which is quite a mammoth task. So they put in an extra course. That meant every year 7 and 8 was getting another hour. Whether it was a rotation or not, they'd get an extra hour of Māori a week to help focus, bringing them up to scratch, bringing them up to that level. And all the resources that I created for that particular class were available to their teachers as well, so they could use it throughout the week with those classes.
Did you guys achieve that goal?
They're still aiming, still reaching. There's definitely been progress. It just meant so that when they came to the rotation class in year 9, and even in year 7, 8, we didn't have to start at the bare basics because they already done a lot of that within the year 7 year, within the year 8 year. It was only implemented in the final 2 years before I left, and so it would probably take a few more years of that being developed and teachers becoming more confident in that space to see its real impact. But I believe I saw the little bits of impact filtering through into that year 9 class. People were a bit more onto it, had a wider range of knowledge. Yeah, and I didn't have to start right at the beginning, which was nice.
Okay, and what are some of the challenges and I guess the benefits of incorporating Māori culture into the classroom? If you can juxtapose those two with each other, what are the challenges and benefits?
Challenges for me incorporating things into the classroom. I very easily and naturally bring things Māori into the classroom. For me, the biggest benefit of incorporating te reo into the classroom, seeing through another culture's eyes. So in Māori, we say te reo me ona tikanga. We also say te reo, which is the language, me ona tikanga, and all the customs and things that come with it. When you learn te reo, you naturally start learning some of the things that Māori value. And so students get a window into another culture and another value system, I suppose, and things that are important to another culture. And so they also learn another skills in terms of respecting other cultures, and it widens their view into their world instead of just what they've known, just what mum and dad's taught them. In terms of bringing other teachers alongside me to also teach te reo in the classroom, the biggest thing I found with other teachers is time. Oh, we don't have time. We've already got this that we have to do. How on earth are we going to also learn te reo on the side there? So that's a big challenge to bring other teachers along. And so it really has to be led from the very top to say, look, we value this and we're going to make space. And whether or not that's, one of the staff meetings a week. We were having staff meetings pretty much every day. I know other schools are different, but maybe one of the meetings each week is purely focused on, bringing the level and the competency of their teachers up a little bit, so that they can help bring that into the classroom, because teachers can't teach what they don't know. Or if they try, it probably won't work so well. So what was the other part of the question? Just make sure I'm answering.
You've talked to the benefits and the challenges. So that's you've answered the question, I think, really well. And yeah, you're right. It is one of the challenges, is like when it's such a crowded curriculum, that to give equal space to all the things is borderline impossible without sacrificing. So yeah, I think schools definitely have to make a directed choice into what they prioritize, and sometimes it's they'll choose the things that they're comfortable with because that's the ones that most staff will be on board with. So that I can certainly attest to what I see in school with that one.
It will also depend highly on the demographics of the classroom. Will you agree? Whereas the schools that have a high demographic of Māori will tend to do a lot more, and the schools that don't will do a little bit less. Although I've seen schools with a lot less numbers, they still give it a go. So how do we incorporate it regardless of who's in the classroom, who's in the school?
Yeah, well, that's definitely something that I also noticed. I was in my final few years of teaching at the high school, I was also an across schools teacher, and so I visited a bunch of other schools and got to see that, those that have a smaller demographic of Māori there had a lot less focus on things Māori. Some of them barely anything, which was a really shame. But yeah, there was a desire to try and see those develop. But I think the main thing is it's really focused, like I said before, on principals, senior leadership, senior management, making time for the staff. Um, because in New Zealand, it's kind of expected that all people have an awareness of this culture. I mean, there's these two parties in this thing called Te Tiriti, this partnership, and it's Māori and the Crown. And everyone who's non-Māori is a part of the Crown. They're invited through and under the Crown. And so it's kind of our job as educators within New Zealand to make sure, whether we've got Māori in front of us or not in front of us, that every student, every person that comes through our teaching or through our educational facilities, our educational places, gets at least the foundation of things Māori and understanding of things Māori. I really believe that we need to be pushing, because you go around so many places in New Zealand and you could not tell that that school was in New Zealand. It could be in any country in the world. You would have no idea that it is a New Zealand school.
Sure.
And I think the main thing that sets us apart as New Zealanders is our Māori culture and the things that come along with that. But it's really about management providing time, and not necessarily the teachers making specific time to teach Māori, but just incorporating it into everyday things. Slowly just changing words or changing phrases to the Māori one. So say, asking if students want to go to the toilet, they go, "Oh, sir, can I please go to the wharepaku?" It might start small. If you want to ask me, make sure you're using the word wharepaku or another word, heketua. You change out those words. It might be that, if you're asking, what are we doing now? You teach that phrase to the students at one point. Say, if you ever want to know what we're doing, this is the phrase. And slowly bringing that language, going, this is the new way that we ask, what are we doing? Or what's up next? And instead of going, how am I going to fit this into my curriculum? You're just drip feeding these new sentences, these new phrases, these new ideas into your everyday, into every topic. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. And that's to teach that phrase also will reaffirm it to you every time you're hearing the kids say it, right? I would just substitute, what are we doing next? I'd substitute, what are we doing for PE? Because that's all the kids ever want to know. It's the only thing they want to know is, what are we doing for PE? You're like, okay, I need to learn that phrase.
Yeah, something that I really like of what you said was that what makes New Zealand special is the Māori culture. And I think in New Zealand, it has to be recognized that it's a bicultural country, and that just cannot be denied. So the more that that's recognized and the more that that's accepted and integrated into the classroom, the easier it's going to become.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've seen a shift in the kids over the last 5 or 6 years at my school, that the kids are the ones that are open. There's no one that it started off, it was a real clash, why are we doing this now? And then it's changed year after year, and the kids are keen. It's just the teachers perhaps that are holding the kids back in a way.
Well, it definitely is. The newer generation, if it is incorporated and used in that within the early stages, as they grow up, that's all they'll ever know. So it'll be natural for these things to be used. And for even for our generation, it was natural for us, both Māori and non-Māori, to be involved in kapa haka or to be learning te reo. Everyone at my school when I was at intermediate had an hour of te reo a week. Even at primary, we did te reo, we did kapa haka. I mean, it was a natural thing. For our parents' generation, it was very much the opposite. I mean, Dad had no opportunity to learn te reo or focus on a te reo subject within his school. And in my nana's generation, then there's that whole thing of, she was brought up first language te reo, didn't learn English till later on in her life, but there was no value put on it, and she saw that you were punished for it, and so she just let it go. So she could speak te reo, but my dad couldn't, and then I had to go work through high school, work through university, all of these things to regain that for my family. But yeah, if it's just in school, naturally, this is all they ever know. And I think that's a beautiful thing. That's why I think it's so valuable for us as teachers, especially in the primary to secondary, just to be fostering te reo, fostering the Māori culture, so that they don't see it as something that conflicts with the rest of their world, but something that helps embellishes it instead.
I mean, there's a lot of data that also proves that if you speak more than one language, your brain just expands in different dimensions. So there's also that benefit, it's just learning a different language helps your brain. So why not use it?
Yeah, well, I remember reading, it's been years ago, so I can't remember the exact facts, but it was talking about that same thing. It was talking about how those who learn a second language, one, it widens their views and their cultural responsiveness, but two, it also, they developed a much deeper ability to problem solve. And their creativity was vastly increased as well when they were learning two languages. And I'm sure there was other things. It was a while ago since I read the information, but they were definitely the main ones that have really ingrained in my head. Yeah, creativity, problem solving, and cultural responsiveness with other people was quite a lot larger or more defined than those who learned a second language.
Yeah, that's true. And school if a school doesn't have the desire to go out with their staff and try and push this journey along, but a teacher wants to, take what you said with some of these drip-fed phrases that we can start to use, and they want to keep learning those and passing them on. What are some good resources to sort of where can I find that? Because I know that sometimes if you jump on, I know that as a cliche, you should never use Google Translate in Māori because it's just wrong. Māori dictionary is a bit better, but it's only words. So what are some, if we have some useful just beginner points for some of these resources?
That's where things are definitely lacking, and it's really hard as well because I've seen a lot of resources put out there on things like Teacher Pay Teachers and other sites like that, and come across all of these ones that are actually grammatically incorrect or missing macrons and therefore spelt incorrectly. And so it's really hard to rely on some of those resources. The best advice, what I did with some preschools and with some of the primary schools I was working with within our co, was going, what are the phrases that you use most? And then I went through and personally translated it all for them so that they can actually trust that, this is quite accurate. I can use this. And so being able for teachers to be able to use their te reo teacher, which is another weight that rests on the te reo teacher or on the cultural advisor or whoever it is that a person has within, whoever that person is within the school. That's definitely the best way to go about it, because you want to use phrases that are, that are purposeful, ones that you personally use every day within your classroom. And so to have those specific phrases translated, it's really about going to your te reo person in the school. There are definitely a bunch of translation agencies out there as well, but then it's another cost. So it may be that within a school, everyone kind of puts through their main phrasal ideas and go, I'd love to be able to say this. There's a big discussion, and then there's one set of phrases that are all sent to a translator, and the school can go, okay, we can do a one-off payment to have all of these translated, and then teachers can start using these particular phrases within the school. But me, as the head of te reo, I kind of took it upon myself to just go, and if people needed it within the school, I just translated it all for them and sent it back. Mainly because I had a big desire to see them used, and there was no one else who had the ability to. So yeah, it was just something that I did.
I guess that's quite a nice segue onto the next question, which is that often I'm not sure if it's a common term or not, but I've heard it before that there's a Māori tax, which is to say that if you are Māori, if you're competent in Māori, the pressure or the amount of work that you're doing for your culture is a lot higher, and as a result could potentially lead to burnout or just a lack of teachers then upskilling themselves as a result. Because sometimes you might, if you've got someone to go to all the time, not knowing that they might be dealing with, all this other stuff, that can place a burden on them, and then you're not really growing yourself in that way too. So how can schools address that? It's a tough one, I know, but
yeah, I think the way I came into it, and I understand that whole idea about burnout because I probably took on more than I really should have. But as when I first came into teaching, my passion, my desire was to see everyone within the school make steps forward in their journey learning te reo and understanding Māori culture. And so I was just doing everything, whether it was, running pōwhiri for visiting small groups for the start of the year school for different, esteemed guests that were coming on, whether or not it was, I also had to teach the kapaka group, so organising them as well, doing translation, doing class visits, sitting with different departments, figuring out how we can incorporate things Māori into. So yeah, there was a heck of a lot more when you sign up to be a te reo teacher, that's you. And I was told to learn to say no. And that's where I struggled with. There's a lot of other areas that I'm like, yep, no, I'm not doing that. And it was really easy, but when it came to things Māori, it kind of felt like it was either I help them or they don't do anything Māori. And so I got stuck in this space. And I used to just do it because I wanted to see Māori used and I wanted to see it grow and develop. And it was also really nice to see these non-Māori teachers with a desire. I mean, they have come to me asking, I want to be able to do this in my classroom. How do I do it appropriately? And in some ways, I prefer that over them going online because there's so many, like I said, resources out there that aren't quite accurate. And a lot of people going into Google Translate or these days even ChatGPT or other AI that's still from Māori to English, you'll probably get a pretty good translation. English to Māori, it's not the goods. Yeah, I mean, I could read it and understand what they're saying, but it's pretty ugly deal. So I don't ask.
It's not the right way of teaching.
No, and if they're using those resources, those incorrect resources, the students are learning incorrect, and so it's kind of a lose-lose. They think they're going in there going, yeah, I'm doing this, great things Māori, but instead they're actually just planting some bad habits in these kids, teaching them the wrong things.
I think it's really nice to hear you sharing that story because obviously your passion for your culture, from te reo, comes through very easily, and you can appreciate how much work you have put into it. How do you make sure that you're keeping your culture and your te reo alive? Is there any other people that are on your level? How many people on your level? Is there enough people at your level to keep building and sending that throughout the community and make sure that enough people are equipped with the right tools to be teaching te reo consistently in different schools?
That's a hard question. Enough people on my level, That's
why you're in the podcast.
I mean, they're definitely, like, I obviously as the te reo teacher, I make connections with those who teach te reo, within my community and even within other cities within New Zealand. And so there are definitely people out there, but what I have noticed recently is there are a lot less people even applying for those particular roles, the teaching te reo roles, teaching kapahaka roles, and it's becoming increasingly more difficult for schools to find te reo teachers. And I think it does come down to that burden of having to do a lot more than just being a teacher in the classroom. And I think some other teachers probably don't recognize the amount of work that people, they have to do in the background. And it's a very relational job as well. And so you engage probably a little bit more deeper with some of the family than potentially others do. Yeah, but it's hard to say how people would go about engaging with the Māori community with the knowledge that they can assist them within the classroom, unless you're going through potentially your Māori teacher who's potentially part of an organisation, the Māori organisation within that city, can make those connections here. Or those who actually go and learn. There was many teachers at my last school who were going to night courses provided by Te Wānanga Aotearoa, and through them they also made connections with other teachers, with other even their lecturers who were able to pass them on to other people and make connections elsewhere as well. So, doing one of those Te Wānanga Aotearoa classes is another way to engage with that community.
Because they're free as well, aren't they?
You can engage with. Hey?
They're free as well, aren't they?
Yeah. And usually they're 3 hours once a week, one evening. Does involve homework. If you're actually going in because you want to learn the language and become more adept and more fluent to the language, then you do have to do the homework. Some people go, I'm doing the classes. I'm like, are you doing the homework? Because they don't feel like they're making their progress. But 3 hours once a week isn't enough. When you're learning a language, it needs to be a commitment to do a little bit every single day.
Should it be something that perhaps needs to be incorporated to the teaching degree in New Zealand, rather than expecting teachers to, after I qualified and you're already in the classroom and you're already extremely busy, add it on top? All right, now that you're extremely busy, why don't you go 3 hours a night every week to learn something on top when your brain is already full? Why do you think it will be of value to remove some of the load at university and add in te reo if that's what we expect everyone to be learning so then we can teach everybody else. Am I being clear?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what your guys' experience was when going through university and becoming a teacher, but I know in my classes and the lectures, there was a lot of stuff that I'm like, this means nothing. It's not actually helping me or giving me a better understanding. It was looking at more about philosophy, like these big, larger ideas, which is, it's great, I suppose, to at least put some thought towards that sort of stuff, but it didn't help me in any way when I jumped into my first, teaching segment in front of a class. And so actually getting rid of some of that stuff that if you actually went around and you asked all of the students that were going to university in these classes and goes, what do you actually find beneficial and what is not beneficial? What did you find was actually a bit of a waste of time? They would probably find that there's a consensus of a particular topic or a particular area where they're like, this doesn't help us in any way. Even those who've been teaching the last 4 or 5 years, they'll probably go, yeah, when we did this, it was kind of a waste of time. If they removed one of those that have less value and added in te reo that has a lot of value, and some people might not see the value in it quite yet, but through the journey, they'll grow hopefully to appreciate and see the value in it. I think that would make a massive difference. I don't know, what was your experience? Did you find there was stuff there that you're like, why are we learning this?
I got an A+ for te reo, and that's a true reflection of the quality of the course because I don't consider myself to be any good at it. So there needs to be more. But a lot of people, when you go traveling, I speak 2 languages, right? A lot of people ask me, how do I say that in Spanish? How do I say this? So in New Zealand, we have the beauty of having 2 languages. So why not just make the most of it and sell it and celebrate it as much as possible? Why go and learn French and Italian when you can be learning the second language in your backyard?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the experience I've had as well when we were having what do they call them? Perspective nights, where families come in and they go around and they can talk to some of the teachers and figure out what they want their students to learn. And people would come into the room I was in, and it was the languages department. And at the time, I think there was French, Māori, and Spanish. And someone will come over because I'll have my guitar playing just while I'm there to kind of lure them in. And then, some of the students are coming over towards, and then the parents are like, no, you should learn this language because, you can't use Māori anywhere outside of New Zealand. And my question to because I went over, I was like, because they were moving over to the French subject. And, are you planning to move to France? Are you moving to Belgium? Where are you moving? New Caledonia? They're like, no, but someday I might like to visit. I'm like, so you visit and then come back to New Zealand where we speak, Māori could be more valuable. And they were like, I might move over there. I'm like, that's a big might. I decided year 9 that you're going to be moving over to France or wherever it is. But I was trying to show that, a lot of even just that there's a generation of people who don't see the value in it, and they think these other languages have value, and they do for sure. If your desire and your is to go overseas and to actually move over there or spend a long period of time there. But if you're staying in New Zealand, which most New Zealanders do, other than the ones jumping over to Australia, then te reo is definitely the most valuable of the languages taught in New Zealand.
Yeah, that's right. And I think something you said there that is of interest is you might move to France or a generational shift, because I think with globalization, what we get is we get to know a little bit about everything, but we forget a little bit about what we have in our own culture. And I'm guilty of that, losing my own culture from where I'm from, just because I'm too worried about learning about everything else. Whereas we need to make sure that we cultivate our own culture first and then move on to the next one, if you will.
Exactly. It's a similar type idea. I think people in New Zealand, we don't see the beauty that we have here anyway, even just in terms of our location. A lot of people are like, I want to go over here, I want to go here, and they're going and traveling all over the world. And say, have you been to this place? And it's only, just down to the south. I'm like, oh no, I've never been to the South Island. I'm like, start here, brother. There's so much beauty down here. And then, it's even with our own language, thinking about languages in other countries and cultures of other countries, and they are beautiful. But start here, have an understanding of the Māori culture, of New Zealand culture, and then later on, broaden your horizons.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you see it in other subjects too, across when we're teaching. Like, for example, we'll learn about the world wars before we learn about Aotearoa history. Like we'll prioritize the world events first before actually learning what happened on the soil underneath your feet. So you see it across a range of different things, eh?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, even if we look now, and they had, the big topic at the moment is te tiriti and toitu te tiriti and this potential referendum of the principles of the treaty. And then the poll going out and finding out, well, actually, most of New Zealand doesn't really have a good understanding and
Mm.
of the treaty and of the principles. And I could even bet that those who did say, yeah, I kind of have an understanding, have a general idea about there was sovereignty and there was governorship, and then there were some other words in there. And they probably thought, yeah, I know enough, you know?
Mm.
But in reality, if you go to sit down, some people have no idea about this, our founding document, the most kind of pretty much the most important document our country really has. And even the, and all the history and the wars, and we say, even celebrating Anzac Day, and it was a big thing. But then there were so many of the massive wars that happened in New Zealand, and a lot of people that lost more people lost their lives in New Zealand within the New Zealand wars as well than overseas. And so, but people don't really have an understanding of these topics. So we teach about all the stuff that goes around the world, and it's very important. It's very important we have an understanding of what goes around the world. But again, we need to be starting with what's happening in our own country first, history. You need to understand the
Mm.
history to make better decisions going forward. I get
Okay,
passionate
well,
about some of the stuff.
no, I think we've covered quite a lot of things on this so far. One thing that I think might be good to talk about is how to foster engagement with Māori families and the wider Māori community. So I know that our school, for example, that I'm at, they regularly have meetings with the Kaumātua, and they sort of work on fostering the relationship with iwi that way. But if I'm thinking classroom, and I'm in the class and I've got families that I know I need to meet with and engage more in the school, given the fact that their parents probably didn't have a good experience in school regarding Te Reo Māori, for example, what are some ways that we can pull them in and get them to be more part of the school?
I think the first way to engage more meaningfully with whānau is actually not making contact with them only when you need something, or potentially their child has done something wrong, but actually
Mm.
being able to contact them and say, hey, look, just letting you know that your son, your daughter, your child did this amazing thing this week, or has made a great improvement, and you should be proud of them. And building relationships through positive communication rather than going, hey, look, your son's still behind in this particular area, and we want you to be able to get alongside him and help him out, make sure he's doing his homework, yada, yada, yada. But actually finding positive times to engage with them in a more meaningful way that they might not even necessarily respond to the email, but they were, there's just that connection of going, this teacher seems to care. He's not just kind of making sure my kid's following rules, but actually
True.
getting to know them a little bit more. And it does add a little bit more work, but it doesn't, it might be that you're just emailing, two families in a week about their particular child, looking for something positive that they have completed. And I know I've probably only done it seldom times, but the times when I did do it, it had a positive response. And I don't know why I probably didn't do it more often. But again, it's just one thing that you almost need to make uh, a conscious effort to do, maybe even putting a sign on your thing, like talk to whānau.
Mm.
Kōrero ki ngā whānau. So that I need to make sure I've spoken to one of the families this week. And when it comes to engaging things like the hapu and the communities, there's so many schools as well that I've seen on the other side that engage them when they want something. But it's actually about letting them know, hey, if you've got any kaupapa at the marae that you want us to support or you want us to be there, if you've got a marae tidy up day, then let us know and we might better bring some kids, but actually better go backwards and forth, not going, give us this, give us this. We want you to do our pōwhiri. We want you to come and talk to our staff. We want you to do, by going, how can we also do something for you guys? I think that's really important for actually meaningful relationship. And that's what you're trying to do. It's more about not just communication, but meaningful relationship. Needs a bit of back and forth.
And there's I can't remember the exact terminology, but it might be a classic saying that what works for Māori works for all, because that if you were to email, like you said, once a week or two families a week, if you were to email them all those families in your whole class, the benefits for everyone. Everyone's seeing the good, regardless of whether the kid in their family is Māori. Everyone gets the benefit of having their teacher talks positively, which builds everything anyway.
And Māori are, in general, very relational. I remember talking to one of these teachers at school, and he was going, "Oh, I've got," and I won't say the kids' names, but I've got so and so. Let's just call him Tama, typical. I've got Tama in my class, and he's not engaging, he's not listening. He kind of just gives me like the stink eyes. Can I engage? How can I engage him? And I said, honestly, like, he had a mean game of rugby in the weekend. Ask him how it went. And so he did that when it came around to his next class. Said, "Hey, I heard you had a great game. How was it? What position?" He started engaging him in that sort of way, and he noticed that within that week, especially, he actually started engaging a little bit more in conversation with him. And I said, the biggest thing with some of our, I won't say all, because some have different values and haven't been brought up in a Māori sense, but for a lot of Māori whānau, building relationships is massive to actually see them succeed in the classroom. For them to even engage in the classroom or to pay attention to you, there needs to be an idea of, hey, I actually care about you. I care about what you're interested in, and then trying to find some sort of connection.
Yeah, because it's reciprocal too. Like I had parent-teacher interviews last week, and the only times that I got asked about myself were from Māori parents. They were asking, so tell us about yourself. And that was them finding out about me, and I was finding about their kid. So it's a lovely two-way street. And I was like, I always get taken back by that, because you're asking them about themselves, and then they ask you, and you're like, oh, right, okay, I should probably talk about who I am, right? It speaks to the mihi and the pepeha, sort of who I am, who am I to that they're entrusting their kid with for a year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I always found in preachers interviews, the ones with the Māori whānau always went longer, because there was more of that backwards and forwards. They always done all that, especially when you'd already seen them a few times, and like, oh, how's it going? It's like, how's your family going? Oh, the last time I saw, your daughter, she was only this, and all of that sort of stuff. They actually like this general interest, just to not go, all right, we're here, tell us about our kid, sweet, we're on to the next one. There's a bit more of like, let's build a bit of rapport, a bit of relationship, so we can understand, who you are, where you're coming from, and connection, man, meaningful connection. It's huge.
I think that goes to prove that not only we need to teach the language, but also learn about the culture, because the Māori cultures are different to New Zealand European culture, if you want to put it that way. So learning about how they go about things. I know a lot of people learn about the Te Whare Tapawha model, or the importance of like being in whānau and building that connection. You'll go a much longer way than just having that sort of like bullet point type email. This is what's going on. Assignments are not good. Not responding in class, not engaging. It's way more deeper than that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really hard, because it's something, teaching culture is really hard. I think you have to live it, or you have to experience it, rather than just being going, this is what the Māori do. And that sort of thing doesn't work, and it doesn't engage. And I think that's why it's so important for teachers themselves to have an understanding, so that they can bring that sort of thing into the classroom. Even as simple as understanding the whole idea about sitting on desks and the like, and that we don't like. I've walked into classes to go in and help a student or help a teacher, and that's the teacher sitting on the desk, just chatting away, and then they see me, and then they get off, because they already know that that's not something that we do, and most of these classrooms as well, when they have their shared lunches, it is on those tables. We don't want your bums there. There is there are reasons why we do this, but it's about how can we get people to understand it and to actually bring it into their classroom through what the teachers do and the teachers' expectations. I think that's the biggest thing, and that's the hardest thing, and probably takes the longest, is to teach culture. But like I said before, te reo me ona tikanga, mā te aku I te reo ka aku I ngā tikanga. Through learning te reo, you also learn more about the culture, you learn about the customs, you learn about what it is that's appropriate. And all of them are based around, a lot of it's based around cleanliness, and a lot of it's based around respect. And I think for any culture, that's two massive things that only are positive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think we'll bring it to a close there. But this has been an awesome chat, and I know that if we were to delve into politics, we could continue for hours more. But I imagine your screen would get a bit more red.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
let's not do that. But I mean, that's just also to say that obviously this is a topical time to be talking about things like this, and to acknowledge teachers are on a journey and going to continue forward. I guess that's the best thing we can do, is just to try our best and to try a little bit more each time, and just to continue on the journey.
Yeah. Just making sure that everyone kind of makes that conscious effort to take another step forward each day, each week, and not just sitting there going, I know enough. We never know enough. We never know enough. We may be teachers, but we've got a lot to learn.
Yes. We expect it of our kids, right? We expect it of the students that they'll continue to push themselves. So
Exactly.
we should keep that for ourselves too.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you for coming on, Hamuera. Marcy, would you like to wrap it up?
Yes, thank you, Hamuera. I think it's been a very insightful conversation. For me, the key takeaway was that you can't teach culture. You have to submerge yourself in it. So perhaps if you're in a school thinking, what can I do? Hold a cultural night, put some food out, invite the community, invite the whānau, get talking, build that relationship, and identify what is that your community needs and how they'll respond better, and just do it, and you'll see the benefits. And I think it's the perfect time of the year to do it. So thank you very much. Very insightful. Wish you all the best. Continue your fight to keep your culture strong and build into there. So yeah, love your work.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.